Well, everybody, we want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again next week on Divided We Stand. No, just joking, just joking. This is Divided We Stand. If you've somehow made it here, I don't know how you made it. Maybe you were searching for the latest camera or toilet seat and just came this way. Well, why don't you stay? This is Divided We Stand. This is the group that tries to commiserate together about the untenable situation between the Democrats and the Republican Party. And we basically do most of our blaming on the Republicans. If you are new, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. So when we do have live videos, you know they're coming up. And you can also find us on Facebook. It's called the Divided We Stand Facebook group page. That one's pretty successful. There, in terms of subscribers, we'll call them members there. We have close to 1,400 or 1,500 members in there. So you're welcome to be a part of that too. Well, I'm Brian Weinstein from Bridge, New Jersey, and right now I'd like to greet my good friend and co-host, and that'd be David Price from Arlington, Virginia. Dave, how are you feeling?
About myself, about the world, about America, about.
Well, let's start with yourself, because I know last week you said you had been in the emergency room.
Again, it's just something you deal with, fluctuating blood pressure, and after you've had the triple bypass, which I did, so no biggie. Last Saturday, really no biggie. I went and got
That's
a clean bill of health.
Biggie. To go to the emergency room, that's still biggie.
To be dismissed, and it is interesting. I've never had a tendency to become dizzy, but now with this blood pressure thing, you do, and it's amazing how your equilibrium just shifts. And you can't do certain. It's really bizarre. It's almost like LSD without the acid.
Really? Is it like a dizzy spin you get like when you're in college and you're drunk?
No, it's not. It's not that. It's just you kind of look like this, right? You kind of dazed,
right,
and you don't have any balance. As I said, this show is not about my health, but since you brought it up, the idea was last Saturday, when I hit the floor, my wife decided it was probably a good time to call 911, which is probably the case. So, that could happen. But, we monitor it, we look at it, we work out, we continue to do what we do.
Well, that's good, Dave. And I'm real happy that you pulled through and everything was
and
good.
I also remembered tonight, unlike some people, I remember to turn my mic on.
I forgot. So, ladies and gentlemen, I did forget to turn my mic on, and I thought there was something wrong with the loop back or something like that. And
there was something wrong with your ability to turn your mic on.
There's just right here. There's this red button. For some reason, I forgot to turn it on. Of all the things, so sometimes it's a simple explanation. Luckily, we got on before that. So, but it's true, Dave. You're mentioning like what's going wrong with the world. It's not just obviously us as individuals. When everything starts kind of flying your way, internally and externally, it makes for great difficulty in being happy.
It's interesting. I had a talk with my psychiatrist this week about that very thing. The next time I can get a session with him is January 2nd. And I said, what's
wow.
Yeah. And which is okay. That's fine. I don't need it, all the time. But he just said that would be the best we could do. And so, I asked him, I said, does that mean an increase in business? And he reiterated what a number of people in that field have told me, that, depression, anxiety, way out of whack with anything seen in the modern age. I think, thanks, Anthony, I will try. Again, one last thing about me personally. The nice thing is mine is chemical imbalance, so those things don't affect me, right? Hey, Keith, that in that sense, but a lot of people, they do. It's scary times to be alive, and there was some, if you're asking, we'll break it down tonight, but it was mostly disturbing news, but some good news too, in terms of what I think should be America's not every American's, but America's number one goal is to make sure that Donald Trump is not president again.
Right.
Yeah, that's Gary's got a good definition of that. That's exactly. Except I never really lost. The only difference I would say from a blackout, like think about it, alcoholic blackouts, when I had those, or even drug blackouts, you're conscious. You know what I mean? It's weird. You can't function. Anyway, enough of that. Let's start. Well, let's start with the beginning of the week when I was all ready to give up the ship. New York Times, reliable organization in Siena, they had a poll and showed Trump ahead in 5 of the 6 battleground states.
Right. All but Wisconsin is he's
all right. So now let's break that down. The 5 states that are swing states, viewed as swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. Trump is leading those in this poll by anywhere from 4 to 10 percentage points. All right. The only one of the key, crucial swing states where Biden is ahead is he's 2 percentage points ahead in Wisconsin. All right. Now, what does that mean? That means as of today. But I have to admit, I'm stunned. Who would think that we would be, a majority of Americans anywhere would be supporting Donald Trump with what we know about him, what we know he did, what we know he didn't do. And I want to talk tonight at length about it's not really a secret plan, but something that the Washington Post unearthed that I think is important to talk about. But I think the thing that also that I still can't grasp around. One of the quotes that was taken from a poll for one of the people that was polled said, well, I voted for Biden last time, but he's just too old. This was what he said. It kind of, I don't get. But at least I think Trump has his wits about him. If anybody in America does not have their wits about him, it is Donald Trump. But somehow, some way, he's convinced people. And I think basically there's still some of that same, he's a businessman, not a politician. He doesn't talk like a politician. People, they seem to react to that favorably. I'm going to build the wall. Did he build the damn wall? No. Okay. I mean, it doesn't matter where you look at it. But anyway, I don't think we can read too much into that, but it says our work is cut out for us. How did you
well, it's interesting because we did have a lot of good news this week with the abortion thing, but whether they can connect that, I don't know. But you're right. When you look at those numbers, you see the balkanization of this country, and you've mentioned this many times, Dave. You don't know if we can ever find our way back because you
how
stated that these Republicans are not going to change. I think we have to look into the psychology. We know that a lot of them are bigots, racists, or just plain stupid. But I think there's got to be a core event happening with Republicans. They just don't trust government, and they don't like us. I think that's it.
I agree. But what we say, some kind of core event, what would you foresee or visualize such a thing being? I don't see it. But.
Like when you look at what happened on January 6th and you see how people, find that acceptable, that there had to be something before that. And I keep going back to the fact that Obama became president. I don't think Republicans had any great respect for Democrats. I mean, but at least they were able to negotiate with him. And we've talked about the contract with America with Newt Gingrich in 94-3. But it seemed like the anger. I've seen the anger of people who didn't like Obama, even when Obama was doing well and when he got Obamacare through. You would see bumper stickers like, I didn't vote for him, and as if times were really, really bad, and they weren't. But there's that, we're talking about a core event. I would think the moment that Obama got elected, to me, this is just one person.
Right.
That the racists of this country, or the people who had a nostalgic view of America, or romantic view of America, whatever way you want to look at it, they saw that as a lightning bolt, as the threat. He won. He was black. They're going to take the country away. This is them speaking.
Right.
And ever since then, they're saying we're not going to go back. We're going to have to cheat, which is what they did. They know the demographics go against them. I can't think of anything else when you have that thing happening where they're going to defend somebody who has 91 counts against him. For the exception of a few who are in his close circles, they don't go against it. They're afraid, and they should be. It's like a mob.
Well, I think I'd break that into two categories. Republican elected officials are afraid, or some support, but I mean some are afraid. I don't think the electorate is afraid. I think what you just said is true. They're more afraid of Democrats or liberals or the East Coast elite or college graduates or all these things that they say, gay men and women, all these things that people who support abortion that are, in their minds showing moral turpitude, to put it mildly, or lack of morals altogether. And you mentioned, and we might bring this up. So we start the week with this really disturbing poll, and like you said, though, you talk, and you've been frequent with this, and I don't disagree with you, that they all kind of adopt. Don't tell them this. Malcolm X idea of by any means necessary to win. Malcolm was talking about the idea of racial change, but in that poll, there was none of that going on, Brian. There were 5 freaking states that, given everything, if that poll was accurate, and if the election were today, we don't know if the poll was accurate, and we don't have any, and we know the election is not today; it's a year away. That would go for him. It just, wow. And we've talked kind of ad infinitum about how this Republican Party differs from the Republican Party I knew up until, actually up and through George Bush Jr., baby Bush. They were conservative. Okay.
And where has he been? Crickets.
Well,
couple little comments here or there, but nothing.
I could turn the same thing around with Obama. I mean, there's been a long history of presidents kind of fading into the background. I think some of it was not to overshadow.
Right, and I understand that. I mean, there's a certain thing you've got to let the president.
But again, these are different times. If Obama can get 7 people to vote, I mean, that's really good. If George Bush, who's spoken out against Trump, could get 9 people, now, of course, politics is a way of life here where I live, and so sometimes I have to kind of step back and think about what it's like other places. Okay, yeah, Jeff. You're kind of proving it. Gary, it's certainly true. I think, the band Living Colour had a song, which I really like, called The Cult of Personality. And that really describes it. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But there's just certain things how Americans, I can only speak to Americans because I've never lived anywhere else. They take a fact and hold on to it. Okay. There seems to be, some say as much as 78% of the American people feel that Joe Biden is too old to be president. Okay? Donald Trump is what? 3 years younger?
But aren't you, I'm going to ask you, aren't you somewhat slightly worried when you see Biden? Everything seems to be as if he's like walking underwater, he's just lethargic. I want him. But
I understand that. But I would favor Joe Biden dead over Donald Trump living. It's that simple.
Absolutely.
See, for me, we can get in tonight, and I like that some of our viewers, listeners, / Facebook members have strong feelings about their candidate, or strong feelings about what they think the Democratic Party should do. At this point, it will be Joe Biden unless he's incapacitated by health or dies. Okay? There's no credible person out there, despite the gentleman from Michigan, who is going to try to enter some primaries. It's too late. I mean, I'm not usually speechless, but this week, look at what's going on. Well, let's look at the election. So Monday we get this bad news, right? And it was bad news if you're against Donald Trump or for Joe Biden or pro-democracy. That was bad news. The states. It gives us some way to go, though, Brian. I hope that people this year really do target their financial contributions, right? If you're in Alabama, don't send money to the Democratic Party. No offense. In Alabama, that isn't going to help. That isn't going to help at all. But look at some places it can. So let's look at what happened in the election. Right? First of all, our state, where I live, Virginia, results were interesting. Okay, two things happened basically. One is the Democrats now control both the House and the Senate in Virginia. They took control from the Republicans who controlled the House. But the other thing it did, which was just, it silenced the Glenn Youngkin for president campaign. You hear nothing about that now, okay? Which, because he would have needed a victory to push that through. And he's not a stupid man. He would know that, he couldn't beat Trump. And people don't realize, Brian, you know that, and I think I could be wrong in this. If somebody can correct me, please do. I think it's 14 states already have their ballot locked up. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not on the ballot, you're not going to run. You'd have to run as a write-in already in terms of primaries. So there was that. So Virginia was a plus for the Democrats. Again, though, you'd have to look at what the turnout was and I didn't peruse it that closely. But in general, Northern Virginia is Democratic, Central Virginia and rural Virginia, Southern Virginia, and near West Virginia, of course, is Republican. But I don't know how the voter turnout was. But in general, Brian, in elections, mostly I found that Democrats tend to vote more in primaries than Republicans, unless there's a contest in the Republicans. There was no contest in many of the areas. It was just the way that it was. All right, so we have that. So in Kentucky, also good news, right?
Right.
Democratic
Beshear.
Governor, Andy Beshear, wins re-election. Now you say, okay, what did Andy Beshear do that Joe Biden could do, right?
Right.
If you could, can you? And there's nothing. Beshear's numbers were almost the opposite of Biden's in terms of popularity. He was a very popular governor. Also, he benefited from the name recognition. His father was governor. A lot of people don't know that. And he was a very popular governor, right? And name recognition is a big thing. And some people are hoping the Republican candidate who defeated closely aligned with Trump. But you can't say that Beshear and that candidate, the same thing will happen when Biden.
Do you think there's any issue with the fact that the Republican candidate was black, that he may not have picked up all the Republican votes he could have?
I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, Senator Scott from South Carolina, he can run for, he can run forever, and he will never get the Republican nomination. I guess you can't say never, but he wasn't there. Now, the big issue, of course, across the country was abortion.
Right.
Abortion is one of those issues that we've spoken about this before, Brian. There's not a whole lot of play in that. You're either for it or against it, or there is the category of for or against with some limitations. 16 weeks or something like that. For me, the issue is real simple. A woman has a right to control her own body. Government should not enter into it. it's not. We're not the United Church of America. We're the United States of America. Not that morality doesn't enter into government, or it shouldn't, but not that way. The question, and you kind of raised that earlier, Brian, is abortion enough of a carryover issue to affect the presidential race? Something I keep reading about, and Brian, I'd be interested your thoughts on this. I don't remember it this way, but again, I'm so anti-Trump that I don't know that I ever gave him credit. There seems to be a lot of commentary out there that America was better off economically with Trump prior to the pandemic. Not, you know what I mean, which is kind of in itself ludicrous. The pandemic is still in effect. You know, it's not like it was, but there's still ramifications from that are playing in. This week we were down in the district, walking around in D.C., and 3 whole blocks are virtually empty in what would be considered the downtown, which is Chinatown Gallery Place. Businesses just can't survive. The workers aren't coming back. I mean, there's, you know, so you know, people look at this and say, "Wow, this is really a lot of that." You know, a lot of that is people going to the gas pump, going to the grocery store, and blaming Joe Biden. And you know, Harry Truman, the buck stops here, right?
Well, how much of that has to do with essentially propaganda?
Well, yeah. Or
remember, it's the perception that he's this or he's that,
and
that's all that matters, of course. But how much is, you know, I have to think a lot of it's propaganda.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. And I think too, like, I mean, okay, so the economy was better with Trump prior to the pandemic. Okay, I mean, even assume for a moment that is true.
Well, it was better than during the pandemic, but it wasn't that good.
That's my point. But people believe it was. Biden's had a real problem selling his economic successes, and that may get back to the fact that he's not dynamic now. But of course, people have to remember he never was dynamic. Like a lot of people just
he never really was.
A lot of people picked up on him when he ran for president. Okay, and it's not even so much he was older.
He used to steal speeches half the time. I mean,
the thing was Joe. From what I don't Joe like I know President Biden. From what I kind of surmised, he was just he liked bringing things together in the Senate.
I understand that one though. Yeah, I think in a certain sense.
I mean, well, and I think what happens with propaganda is as you feel more strongly about the issue, right, you're more ready to accept the propaganda. But I think.
Well, that's that. What was it called? That's the. It's not the Dunning-Kruger effect, or is it? Yeah, I mean, it's confirmation bias. Yeah, that's what
confirmation bias, where you find what you find the support. And see, that's another thing, you know, in our continuing, never-ending saga of social media. Certainly, social media is like a gun or the Bible, or a computer or anything. In and of itself, it's not evil or good. It's how it's used. And okay, let's see, Jeff. Let's see what Jeff has here. I saw a meme, a veteran wearing a Navy hat that had a MAGA hat. Guy thank him for his service. He responded with "fuck off, traitor." Yeah, I mean, yeah. Another statistic. You know, statistics jump out, and I'm not a real statistics guy. I don't quote them all the time. But I was reading something this week, and do you realize I forgot this, Brian? 140. 140 police were injured in January 6th insurrection.
Yes, it was horrible, and 5 people ended up dying. Right?
Yeah, you know, and this is not
eventually
and that was MAGA, that was Republican, that was Donald Trump. However, now probably. Maybe the worst news this week actually came from your favorite senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. Now,
in a certain way, I'm glad that he's going to be gone, but you know, I understand.
Here's the thing. Right. So Joe Manchin was a Democrat. You know how they have Rhino,
Dino and Rhino.
Yeah. Well, he was. Well, you know, he was. But the thing was, he was a Democrat. And so his numbers counted, right? So currently, what do you have? You have a 1-vote majority in the Senate, right? And now he will not be returning. Now, there's no way that I could foresee a Democrat winning the Senate race in West Virginia. None.
Are there any
nobody
sports
down
personalities that could come back there and pull it off?
Unfortunately, probably anybody who is.
Because there aren't too many great athletes from West Virginia, like per se.
Yeah, no. So that seat is now gone. It will be a Republican, but that's not the worst thing. Maybe what might be even worse. Joe Manchin, and here was his quote, as he, the quote that everybody picked up on. He says he'll now spend time traveling the country for a movement to mobilize the middle. And a lot of political commentators are looking at that and saying, does that mean that he's going to make an independent bid for president? Okay. And certainly there's a group out there, we've talked about it before, but it's something I urge everybody to keep an eye on, because it has the potential to be really bad. Well, it may be good, but I'm so worried. The No Labels group. They're a well-funded group with a lot of money who are looking for an alternative to Biden and Trump. Right? Manchin would be, would they reach out to Manchin? Would Manchin reach out to them?
What happens if it becomes inundated or flooded with the RFK Juniors and,
I'm going to get to that
Jill
right
Steins of the world?
Let's look at that. Let's break it down for people so that we know. All right, so, and you could just say I agree or disagree.
Okay.
Right now, the Republican nominee is Donald Trump.
Flat out true.
Right now, the Democratic nominee is Joe Biden.
Unless something happens to his health, yes.
Right. Now, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running for president. He's running as an independent. Okay. Now we're going to bring it back. Here's where it gets really interesting. In those states that we talked about, the 6 states earlier in the program, right?
Right.
They had a second question on there, and that was, who would you vote for? And they had 3 names: Biden, Trump, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kennedy polled 28% of the vote in those 6 states.
Which is stunning.
It's beyond stunning. The man's a kook, but...
He is.
But he has the Kennedy name. So again, more quote from someone says, I've always liked the Kennedy family. The Kennedy family doesn't like him.
Well, is it the Kennedy name, or is it more that he's a kook that is making him popular?
Well,
you know what Hunter Thompson said about the weird and,
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, people don't know much about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They probably think it's Bobby. There's probably people think it's Bobby Kennedy.
Right. They wouldn't know the difference.
They wouldn't. But so I think right now it's more the Kennedy name. Well, 2 things are going on. There are a lot of people who don't want Biden or Trump, right? So that might be a place you would look, and then couple that with the Kennedy name. But that's not all. You also have 2 others who are in the race to stay. Cornel West, who I guess doesn't qualify as really old because he's only 70, is going to run as an independent. Now, what's interesting there, Brian, is I don't know all the machinations of what happened, but when West first declared, he was going to be the Green Party candidate.
Right.
And he's not. So he pulled out, or they pushed him out, whatever. And they now have their candidate, who is Jill Stein, who many people believe was instrumental in Hillary Clinton's loss by pulling votes that would have gone to Clinton were she not in the race. Now that's pretty safe. You can't really say not, but I can't really see too many Green Party votes coming from Republicans. Would you agree? I mean, they'd have to be independents or Democrats.
Yes, I mean there are a couple conservatives who, are really concerned with the environment, but not many.
Now we need to look at that. So who does West draw if he stays in?
Well, first of all, he might draw a certain college crowd, and he might draw a small number of African Americans.
Yes, I think you're absolutely correct on that. Both groups which are normally considered Democrat. Who is Jill Stein going to take?
That would be the far left, who is very much into the environment. I don't think if you're like we're into the environment, but we don't vote for Jill Stein because we know that she's going to get nowhere. But there are people who are progressive like us, but they are a little farther to the left because they're very idealistic, so they will vote for her. And
my only my statement is going to be the whole time, assuming that it comes true. Who do you want as president, Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Because anybody else ain't winning it.
It's so obvious. I mean, you're right.
But this number for Kennedy, see, one of the things it does. Now, a lot of people didn't read the article in the Post and the New York Times. A lot of people did just choose not to read that, or it doesn't sink in. But that 28%, 35%, and 33%, that's quite a bit. Actually, that's funny. Global solidarity, not funny that you smoke crack. But I actually had a chance living here to spend some time with Mr. Barrett when he was here. And he was a charismatic speaker. What he really had, he was sort of like Donald Trump in the Republican Party. Black residents in D.C. felt that he was their guy, right? And he did a lot of good for that. I'm not saying. What was a famous quote when the FBI came in? The bitch set me up. Yeah. Okay. No, Marion. She didn't put.
I remember that one. You're right. Bitch set me up.
But I went to a couple of his things. Actually, I went to a book talk.
I don't think he said the. He just said bitch set me up. Yeah, it's funny, Dave. But he did say it. He did say it.
No. And I at the time I was still writing my blog down here, and so I remember one instance where he was speaking at the National Press Club. It was the closest I've ever seen to a church service, at the National Press Club. I mean, these people were followers, very much. The analogy would be the way people follow Trump. They followed Barry, and they overlooked. They would say stuff like, "Well, yeah, that's tough, but the bitch set him up." Okay, fine. Or they would say, but yeah, okay, that's fine, but we don't care about that because he was very good with getting jobs for Washingtonians, black Washingtonians. So he was there. So one of the groups we mentioned, as we said, what Joe mentioned, keep an eye, Brian, I urge everybody to keep an eye on this, no labels. It's a big thing, who they get, how they fund, will they pull out. And I think Manchin actually, I don't know how you would feel, Manchin would probably draw from both. Take some of Trump's support, possibly.
Yeah, there would be some, I would imagine a few Republicans might.
But again,
nowadays that could be enough, though. That's the problem. That could be, 3,000 votes could be enough.
We're all so close, yeah. And then there was another group that did really poorly, which is good. Moms for Liberty. I don't think there's ever been a group that I've run across that are more aptly wrongly named, right? For those who aren't familiar with that, Moms for Liberty is a group that's growing, and it's basically parents, basically moms, obviously Moms for Liberty, so basically women who want to get rid of books that they find offensive, who want to reinstall prayer in school, all the things that were there. Not one of their candidates backed anywhere. I think they backed not local candidates, school boards, but that were prominent candidates. 19, I think. They all were defeated. So that's good. Okay. But again, the key point becomes the race is not really between policies, right? It's between people's conception of Joe Biden and people's conception of Donald Trump. And so let's look at the world situation just a little bit, and then we'll bring it back to Mr. Trump, which might be the most disturbing news of the week. So we have the two major conflicts going on, right? We still have that. I think sometimes I don't know, Brian. Do you? I sometimes have. I mean, I know it's there. I know it's on, but I sometimes have a tendency to forget. Not that it's there, but this is big, and there's an impact in America. I'm sure you saw what happened to Rashida Tlaib, the
Yes.
Michigan Democrat.
She was censored.
She was censored. And for anybody who doesn't know that, that's just a bad girl, bad girl. But I mean, it's not insignificant, right? But I think what happens now is it's not the stigma that it used to be. But it's still
Right, because there's been so many censures. It's just
and it's
basically in timeout for
now. You're going to be the
school.
judge now. I'm going to give you some facts about this, and you're going to rule. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, what if you were a congressman, what would you have done? So basically, here's what happened. Rashida Tlaib is a Muslim from Michigan, been very outspoken, been part of the Group of Five, with AOC and others. And so she put together she didn't put together. She had put together a video dealing with the Israel-Gaza situation. And very early on, you heard crowds shouting, because you had crowds there, "No peace on stolen land, and from the river to the sea." Now, I wasn't familiar with that, but apparently that's been a long time.
That's always been out there. It's been out for a long time.
Yeah, a long time
It's
change.
code. It's like code. It's code.
It's code. You're exactly right. It's code for. It's not anti-Semitic. It's anti-Israel. It's like kill them.
Well, no, basically it means that this is going to be ours, and the Jews are going in the sea. That's basically what
Right.
it is.
Right.
From the
And,
Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea.
From the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. Now, so that was part of it. So that's offensive to a lot of people. But then near the end, she actually started. She said that Joe Biden supported
Genocide. She said
genocide of the Palestinian people. That's a falsehood. Now, I don't. It's not. He didn't support it. Maybe you could argue he didn't do enough, but I mean, he didn't come out and support it. And then
it's completely absurd to I think that was done, and I'm jumping the gun here, but to put pressure on him, and that was unfair. Because first of all, you're lying, and now you're trying to put pressure on the man because he really has to spread he's got he's between a rock and a hard place basically, and he has to be very careful how he negotiates this because you can't go completely one way and can't go the other politically speaking. So for her to do that was cruel to him, at least in my opinion. It was cruel.
I would agree. And this was an actual quote from her. I want to get it right, so I'm looking down here. Mr. President, the American people are not with you. Well, that's a falsehood. Actually, they are.
They are, right. 50% of Democrats and about 80 to 90% of Republicans. And that's a large number of Americans.
Right. Now, but this issue, the two, it's very emotionally charged. And the problem becomes, again, for the Democrats is most all of those who favor any kind of Palestinian over Israel position are Democrats.
Yes, one, I think Massey's one Republican. He's like some anti-Semite on the Republican side that does that.
Right.
But yes, you are absolutely right. And we're talking maybe about 12 to 15 that were in that camp. But really, there's a core of like 5 or 6 that, seems to always bring it up.
But, so that means that Representative Tlaib has the right to take any position she wants.
Right. Absolutely.
Has a First Amendment right. But what we're finding, Brian, again, that was out and about. They say now that from the minute your thumb or your finger, whatever you use to type X, which used to be Twitter, is the fastest method. 7 seconds, it's around the world, right?
Right.
So she charges that, Mr. President, the American people are not with you. Some people just stop and say, "That's right, they're not." Or, they don't. We don't go any further. And we're again.
Well, we were just talking about like confirmation bias. She has her constituents, and for her to say that, it'll make it sound right, and that's not the case in terms of how people vote.
No. And again,
her constituents, yes, but not outside.
But see, that's another thing that I find so fascinating, especially down here, is if you're a member of the House of Representatives, do you speak for your constituents or do you speak for America?
Well, you're supposed to speak for your constituents for the most, but you do have an oath to the Constitution, which means there's some things you don't overstep.
Right.
I just don't know why she had to accuse the president of supporting genocide, which is ridiculous.
Well, I think
I understand that a lot of people who are in fact, by the way, let's just remember that the numbers that are coming out of there are coming from the Gaza Ministry of Health, which is run by Hamas. So we don't know typically in terms of the killing that's going on, and I don't want to get in a debate about this, but we don't know the actual number of those who are actually Hamas soldiers and those who were innocent civilians. So it could be that 8,000 were, Hamas soldiers and 3,000 were innocents. Whatever the number is, it is what it is. But to accuse the president, it's as if they're purposely trying to kill the babies, which is really essentially what Hamas was doing. It's so unfair to the president, and he can't even react too hard to that because that might politically hurt him. So he's got to just kind of like brush it off, just like he has to brush off his son's issues.
Well, one good thing, I guess, a little bit there, not calling it a ceasefire. What do they call it? Something. There's a
pause. A pause.
A pause.
A humanitarian pause for 4 hours each day. And it's working. You're seeing a movement of people continually to the south, which is better than staying in the north, and that's probably Biden that got that. He's the one that pushed for that.
He was one. Yeah,
Israel. It has no benefit for Israel to do that. It has benefit for Biden politically. So Biden has done things behind the scenes. I mean, I can't just think it's Blinken or something like that. It's got to be.
Oh no, Biden. No. Any foreign policy is going to be the president.
Macron's not going to change Netanyahu's view or Israel's view for that matter. It's going to be Biden because he's the one that's really supplying the goods. He's going to plead with them. I say Biden is going through a period of our history where we're going to look at him as a great president if he can get through this and do the right things. But for people to accuse him of genocide, supporting, I just can't believe that. That's what bothers me the most. The river to the sea, look, she's Palestinian. Some Palestinians, like 53% support Hamas. So I kind of understand that she would say that. But to say that the president of the United States supports genocide of the Palestinian people, that's not fair.
Well, maybe Mr. Trump, we'll come back to Mr. Trump. Maybe Mr. Trump has an answer for everything. I don't know if you saw this week, again, Washington Post. I don't know how much national player. They have a big player in the Washington Post here. They got hold of a study called Project 2025. Okay, and that's basically some of the think tanks, right, conservative, right wing, MAGA think tanks in Washington D.C. coming up and working with Trump on an overall plan for his first steps when he's reelected president. And basically, 2 R words come into play. Basically, and remember, now this is where they're starting. Okay, so it's got to be it has to be very important to them, if not the most important. And those 2 R words are revenge and retribution. Okay, so this plan calls on the first day that Donald Trump is president, that he invoked the Insurrection Act to deploy the military against civil demonstrators. Wow. Okay. You know, America has always had a history of not using the military against its own citizens, right? They use the National Guard, but in that case. Now, what I find so, I don't know if the word's ironic or just sickening, is invoke the Insurrection Act. The insurrection was your people, Trump.
Right.
Not anybody, not
Right.
anybody else's. Now, this goes further to authorize the Justice Department to investigate people who are his critics. Okay. And 4 names circled, you'll know, or surface. John Kelly, who was his former
Right.
chief of staff. William Barr, who was his former attorney general. Ty Cobb, who was his personal attorney for a while. And
He was the White House, wasn't he? The White House attorney or something?
yeah, so and which Trump took as his personal attorney, which isn't true. But and then you had General Mark Milley, who was chief of staff, and that's part of those are names in there. But there are also plans for attacking non-Trump supporters at the FBI and the Justice Department. Now, this comes apparently directly from Trump. Some of that, in this, he also put in there a special prosecutor. He was a special prosecutor to go after President Biden and his family. That's where we're going to start?
Right.
Well, it is. That's where we're going to start. So
It reminds me of like Stalin getting somebody to put an ice pick in Trotsky's ear. Like this is the sickness.
Exactly. Now, here's Donald Trump's quote on this. Of course, he claims that he's a victim and it's trumped up political charges, no pun intended. And here was his quote. This is third world country stuff. He's saying that what Biden and the Democrats are doing to him. This is third world country stuff. And if your opponent, excuse me, to attack your opponent, and that means I can do it too. Huh? What? How? When?
It's sick logic. Very, very sick.
So
He gets it wrong on everything, Dave. Everything.
I know. Well, because it's all about him.
Right.
You know.
It's a sickness. It's people like in the beginning were joking that maybe this is narcissism. It's got to be something, but no, there's really something sick with this fucker. He is really fucking sick.
Well, actually, some columnists were looking at this report talking about it. They said it goes long back. Like he would actually speak at seminars where he.
What happened? What happened? You there, Dave? I don't know. That was weird, folks. Can you still hear me out there? If you can't, there you are, Dave. Did you accidentally hit a button?
No, that's you.
No, it shouldn't be me. It said guest muted himself.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
It's a falsehood. Complete falsehood.
Okay.
What did happen, my Siri came on and said, I didn't get that. Could you try again? So I think that was you. Are you going to make it through this show, man? You look tired. What's up?
No, I am tired, but we only have 8 minutes, 10 minutes left. I can make it. I'm fine. I was listening to you. I was actually getting into what you were saying, but you cut out.
Let me have. We've forgotten for a while that there are 9 people who go to work in Washington, D.C., who almost have equal or maybe sometimes more impact than the Senate or the House or the President, and that's the Supreme Court. It's going to be interesting. They actually have this week, they heard oral arguments on a gun case. Did you see anything about that? Do you know anything about that at all, Brian?
Very little. I know that they're going to be discussing that, but I don't know. Who knows with that court? Anything can happen. That's a Trump court, Dave. I mean,
well, that's just it. What we actually have, the issue this time is, can someone convicted or found guilty of domestic violence have a weapon?
Right. Okay, that was it. Right.
So it's a specific kind of area. Now, the court is already on record, and this is like, I can't believe, Jesus Christmas. These guys aren't, I don't know. They're not dumb, so they're just political hacks. Here's kind of what they established in the last gun case that came before them by a 6-3 vote, again, along ideological lines. In order to be constitutional, a gun law has to be analogous to a law that would have existed at the nation's founding. Does that mean guns are analogous today to the nation's founding? I don't think so. We definitely need a revision of the Constitution, but that's not going to happen. So I don't know. We've beaten that horse because there's no way, there's not enough support for that. But we'll have to wait and see what the court rules. The case, basically, though, is really a poster child for this. The gentleman's name is Zachary Rahim from the great state of Texas. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison for possessing a gun with having previously been charged with domestic violence. But from the point after his first order came through, restraining order, etc., he had 5 other incidents where he fired a gun, and on 2 different women. So certainly it wasn't like my bad, kind of thing, a one thing off. So we'll be waiting to see what the court does. I'm just really disturbed with that idea of it has to be analogous to something that happened in the 1700s. And critics of that were pointing out that you can't do that because there was no such thing really as domestic abuse in the 1700s, because basically women were the property of their husbands.
Right.
I mean, that's how, that's how ludicrous. It's the same as saying a muzzle loading rifle from the Revolution is the same as a automatic weapon today. And I still don't quite get. I do now. I think I said I didn't.
I mean, if you think about it, I'm going to interrupt you for a second, David. Like, just people
Right.
understand what you're saying. If there were, say, 1,000 M16s that were given to the Union Army in 1860, that war might have been over with in literally a couple of days, if not a day. That just shows you the different technology and the difference of what's out there. So just to even come close to making a comparison, you can't do it. You can't even compare World War II to now. An aircraft carrier could have destroyed all of Germany in a couple of hours, and that would have been it.
Right. Well, you know what, and Brian, that's interesting. I mean, if you think of all the things we're facing, and we keep looking backwards. I mean, climate. We don't talk about that a lot because we look more at the political ramifications, and that's almost been now. They're not doing anything, right?
And by the way, we don't discuss it that much because we are in the opinion that we cannot change anything in terms
Correct.
of climate without the politics being changed. You have to start from the
Correct.
roots up.
I would agree. You also have guns. If we don't get that, the opioid epidemic continues unabated. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Anthony's exactly right. But we've lost. I started to say I didn't understand, and I didn't, but now I think I'm starting to. I didn't understand the lasting power of this gun thing. Why? But basically, it's shifted. It's not the NRA now that's pushing this, right? I mean, they're kind of. It's now gun owners who don't want any restrictions. And that's not to say that every gun owners. I mean, certainly my family held guns, but not to the way it is today. So, to sum up, a little bit of good news, I guess, this week, right? Just
right, there were some
abortion,
right,
abortion,
and also with the marijuana, so that was good in Ohio.
Ohio, so you got some.
But they're going to still do something. I mean, I know the Republicans aren't just going to let this thing sit. They're going to try to stop it from happening.
Well, if anybody ever says that a law is a law forever, I ask them to look at Roe v. Wade. I mean, that was 50 years of established law, and it wasn't there. Well, Brian, I see by the clock on the wall that's time. So thank you, anyone who was watching tonight or listening or whatever. Or thanks again to anyone who picks it up later on rebroadcast. And as always, Brian, thanks for having me on the show. And with that, I will say goodbye.
Dave, thank you very much. Hope all goes well this week. I'll keep in touch. And we'll see everybody next week. Dave, I'm going to sign off as usual. So tell Judy I said hello. And
tell Ronnie the same.
I will do that. I will do it. See everybody.